Okay, we're live. Hi, Carlos.
Hello, Margaret. How are you?
Good. I got a new laptop, but
Oh,
the
I know.
camera is a little low quality, so I'm gonna have to buy a webcam for this.
Okay.
Oh
You flip the
yeah, let's do that.
that will help me a little bit so I don't
There
look
you
like
go.
a different direction. But there you go. That's a lot better.
Yeah, I'm in my room at home in
In Los,
California.
in Los Angeles.
What?
In
Yeah,
Los
in
Angeles.
Los Angeles. In Los Angeles. Yes,
Right.
yes.
Oh,
I was actually by your house today. I went to the farmers market with my mom to the Hollywood farmers market. That farm market is massive.
it
It's
is.
way bigger than the one that we
It is.
usually go to. Yeah, but it was such a beautiful day today out
But I'm
there.
saying you because you should have came to my farmers market, which is the food health marketplace.
The thought did cross my mind. It did.
So the next time you know where to come. We
Yeah, yeah,
have very affordable prices.
yeah.
We are selling to the public at our cost and pretty much people will save tons of money getting organic food, healthy
Yes.
organic food.
Well, before we pitch that, let's start the show.
But right, I was gonna
Boom,
say,
boom, 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 boom. Our theme music. Doo, doo, doo. Welcome to Stand Up Fight Back, where we discuss strategy and analysis for the progressive movement. I'm your co host, Margot Pies. I'm a scientist, engineer, and occasional journalist. And over here is the amazing grassroots organizer, Carlos Maruquin. And we're here. We've got another episode for you on this Sunday evening. If you are on the West Coast, Central Mountain Time, or East Coast time in the United States, it's evening. Everywhere else, I don't know, you're having breakfast, it's the middle of the night, whatever you're doing, we appreciate that you're here with us today. And we have a really great discussion as always. Today we are looking at food insecurity. And of course, Carlos, food insecurity is an issue that isn't just a local issue, it's also a global issue. And there's a lot of things going on right now that's affecting that.
exactly. Good evening, everybody, wherever you may be watching us from. It is good to be here with you this Sunday, this beautiful Sunday evening here in Southern California, in Hollywood, particular. That's where I'm at right now. I literally just walked in, but I am glad that I'm here with my co-host Mark. And we're going to be talking about food insecurity because it is a global issue here in America, the richest country in the world. In California, the fifth largest economy of the world, we have people that are food insecure. We have people that lack access to healthy food. And that's what we're going to be talking about today's show. We're going to talk about, the issues relating to healthy food, that affects your health, that affects your community, really, that affects your work. Because if you're not healthy and you're not going to work, now it trickles down to again the job performance, and it trickles down to how it's going to affect your coworkers, your job itself. So much that food insecurity touches, unhealthy food, etc., etc. The cost of food, my God,
Yeah.
how can we forget that? You know, I think everybody can agree with us. It's like we're very disappointed. We're very concerned and alarmed by the high cost of food. You go to the market now, you literally have to choose. Instead of taking two bananas, I only can afford one. Unless unless you're part of the 1%. We're not talking about you. But the average worker now is concerned about, the high cost of food, and it's affecting everything else in their lives economically because the high cost of gasoline, we have the high cost of just about everything, is in the up, in the up and the up. So we have to talk about this, and we have to see where we're heading, and what are some of the things that we can do.
Exactly, exactly. So, first of all, let's start on the local scale and then let's expand out to the global scale. So, let's talk about what you've been doing to address food insecurity through your work here in Los Angeles, but also across the United States, right?
Right. Well, locally, let's let's not fool ourselves. there are many people that are facing food insecurity that are, well, let's take a step back. What is food insecurity?
Yes, very good.
That's something that you're going to be hearing a lot, about. You're going to be hearing about food insecurity. What do that means? It means a lot because that is in a very base summary is the lack of access to healthy food. And that comes in various ways. You could be food insecure because, you literally will have to drive miles away from your home to a local market or to a market where you have, where you're able to purchase food. So you are in what is called a food desert.
Mhm.
There's many people throughout our communities that are living in food deserts, meaning that there is no access to food. You will literally have to drive away a whiles and just to get to a supermarket so that you can buy food. So that would be one way of seeing it. The other way would be is the fact that some people may not have transportation to get to those locations. So that doubles on the issues in them being able to access food. So no transportation, stores far away, we have problems, or that person has problems, that family has problems, that senior has problems. The other way that we can look at this is the high cost of food. Is you go to the market, you see the high prices, and your pocket is saying no, you cannot buy that. That puts your life at risk because now you no longer are able to buy healthy food. You're going to have to go to the next level, which may be unhealthy food, canned goods, or whatever else that is cheaper. That is a problem because it will affect your health. The fact that if you don't eat healthy, you are hurting your body.
Right,
you know?
exactly.
If you are only eating fast food, items, products, then you're hurting your body in the long run. That affects your heart, that affects everything that has to do with your body. So food insecurity is about food deserts, is about lack of access to healthy food, is about high prices of food when you cannot afford healthy food. So that's when we talk about healthy food, that's what we're talking about. That there are so many communities locally all over Southern California that are considered food deserts, that are communities, entire communities that are being affected by the lack of healthy food. The supermarkets don't carry it. Some of the stuff that we see market, and this is incredible, is that you go to the west side, which is considered the rich part of Los Angeles, and you can go walk to any supermarket and you will have high quality food there, fresh food. Then you go down to South Central, you go down to some other low income areas, community of colors, and then you see the vegetables they have there. It's a huge difference. These vegetables are considered next level, fresh, where they are not coming straight from the farm, where they are not fresh, where in some cases they almost expire. So those are the things that we are seeing. And again, everything is based in economics, in your economic position, standing, your social standing. If you have money, then you have access to healthy food. That should not exist. That should not be happening because at the long run, everybody pays when people are not healthy. You're talking about complaining that we spend too much money on medical costs. Well, that a lot of that has to be blamed and the fact that people are food insecure. They have no access to healthy food. They are eating junk. They are eating pretty much leftovers. They are eating, almost expired food. We need to change that. So locally, yes, Margaret, we have serious problems. This is why we are seeing long lines over at the food pantries where people are standing long lines just to receive some food. And I have been involved in distributing food now for a little for some time. And I saw this, especially during the pandemic, how people were so insecure when it came down to their food, and top with the high cost of rent, is how are people supposed to even eat if they don't have money left over? Low wages, high cost of food, high cost of everything else. What do you have left? How can you afford to buy a decent meal?
Right. And Carlos, I have seen this in a couple other major cities, firsthand. When I lived in New York, in Manhattan, I lived in the East Village, and there's parts of the East Village that are public housing, NYCHA housing and Mitchell-Lama housing. So NYCHA housing, that's like what we would call in Los Angeles the projects. And out there they had a grocery store that was right next to right in between the two like major sets of NYCHA housing. The produce there was terrible. It was like the worst produce I had ever seen. But you get on the train, you go up to Central Park, and up there's a Whole Foods. The food there is gorgeous, right? And that's, of course, where the rich Manhattanites live. They don't live down in the East Village, in the East Lower East Side, in the subsidized housing. No, right. And so capitalism, right, like ignores the poor people. Why are they gonna sell them this food when they could sell it for a higher price to the rich people up around Central Park? Okay. In Atlanta, when I first moved to Atlanta in 2016, one of the things that I complained a lot about was that there was no, oh my gosh, stop, that there was no grocery store on the particular side of town that I lived in. And I lived right across from Georgia Tech. But there was no grocery store, and there was still like a very big low-income Black community that was slowly being pushed away in a particular direction, I guess more towards South Atlanta. Now, recently, they've been building tons of high-rise apartments in Atlanta, jacking up the price of rent like massively. Still cheaper than Los Angeles, but not that cheaper. Okay. And now they're building a massive grocery store right next to my apartment building. They're not building it because they want to cater to the low-income working class Black community in the town. They're doing it because they know that wealthy people are going to be the only people who can afford these new high-rise apartments, these luxury apartments, and they're the ones who are going to get the nice grocery store. Right? This is horrible. Like, this is a complete injustice that happens because food is treated as a market commodity instead of a right of every person.
Exactly. And let's remember that food in itself is a human right. Everyone deserves to have access to healthy food. It's not your economic status that should determine whether you eat healthy or not, whether you have access to healthy food or not. Everyone should be able to have access to healthy food, because, as I said, this will affect everyone, whether you like it or not. You're complaining about why so many people have mental issues. Well, a lot of it has to do with the food that they don't have, the lack of access to healthy food that prevents people for breaking down. You eating, you're consuming, people are consuming all this food that has all kinds of chemicals, all kinds of preservatives, that affects their body, that affects the brain, that affects the way they even sleep. So eating healthy should be a right for everyone, where people should be able to have access to that, even if they don't have the money. The government, and this is why it's going to be very interesting, because I'm very interested in the policies that we have here in the United States, or even statewide or locally. What kind of policies do we have concerning food? We have to ask those hard questions. Why is it that our low income community or communities of colors Why is it that they are getting the leftovers when it comes to food? I'm going to say that again. Why is it that our low income communities, the communities of colors, are getting the leftovers of food? That should not be happening, folks. And we should demand that our communities, regardless of their economic standing or status, they should be able to walk into a place where they can afford healthy, fresh, freshly cut food. Where you have
Exactly.
that access.
Right. So, Carlos, you're doing something about this, though. You are working on a project right now in LA that is trying to address food insecurity in the city. I think it'd be really great if we spent a little bit of time hearing more about what's going on there and how your project will help at a grassroots level with dealing with addressing food insecurity.
Right. Well, let me say this, that I'm not speaking right now in behalf of AIDS Healthcare Foundation, which I work for. I happen to be the national director for food and food for health programs. So I'm not speaking, with that under that title right now. I'm speaking as a concerned citizen. I'm speaking as an activist. I'm speaking as someone that do hold a job that deals with this. However, having said that, yes, we are working on many projects that will address food insecurity. There are some things that are very delicate right now because the things that I have discovered all along, the things that I have seen, that I have witnessed, that we are documenting is beyond belief. When I look at the cost of food, and when I look at the cost of food, you know, where we purchase the food at the farms and what have you, and I see what they are charging the people, it is criminal. Food is not expensive. It's not. And I know, all these grocers are gonna say, well, the high cost of transportation, and we have, the high cost of doing business. We have to be able. We have no choice but have to charge, a lot of money to people. No, you don't have to do that, because if you look at the margins of profit that you are receiving and what you are charging, that in itself tells us a lot. That is greed. It is greed that has consumed, our grocery stores. It is greed that is consuming, those people that are distributing and what have you. And they want to charge up everything and they want to mark up everything. The fact is that, look, if I can get food, delivered to us at no cost, and I'm not getting a lot of food like many of these groceries are, you could do the same thing. Actually, you even have a better position than someone that is receiving less amount of food, that is buying less amount of food. So if I can get to deliver that for free, what you are doing is you're lying to the public by charging all this amount of money on food that pretty much you can get a lot cheaper. So I know that it's delicate and I know it's sensitive because of a job that I may hold, but guess what? I have to speak the truth. I have to say it the way it is. And if someone don't like it out there because we're exposing your great heart, so be it. But when I look at the lines, at the food banks, when I see how people are hurting and that they have to spend hours out there, that they have to be standing in line since, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, spend hours in there in the cold and the rain, you know, just so that they can get some food, that is wrong at every level. I don't care how you see it. It is wrong, period. Our seniors should not have to be over there risking their lives so they can get a bag of food. And that's what's happening, folks. Because when you look at the people that are standing on those lines, our seniors, our moms, our dads, sometimes they have no choice but to bring their kids with them. So it is, I cannot even wrap it around my head how we have allowed this to happen. Food insecurity is real and it touches so many people beyond what some people will even think. Our students are lacking access to healthy food. You know, people in good universities, they don't have no access to healthy food. They lack in that. So so much work that we need to do, and we right now we're working on several projects, but the ultimate here is to be able to address food insecurity at every level possible, including policy. We need to address policy. You know, what kind of policies we have regarding food. We need to be asking. Everybody's is freaking out because the high cost of gasoline. And yes, you should be freaking out and you should be upset about it. But you should also be equally upset at the fact that you have to pay a lot of money just to put food on your table. That you have to make choices between buying this or buying that because you don't have enough money because everything is so expensive. Come out of the market, you spend over $100 and you look at the bag that you're carrying and you hardly see anything in there. That is the reality that people are facing right now. So people say, you need to calm down, Carlos. No, I don't need to calm down. What we need to do is stand up. And we need to voice ourselves up. We need to raise our voices and we need to start demanding justice when it comes to our food.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the high prices assumes a certain amount of food scarcity, right? But then you look in the trash can behind the grocery store, and what do you see? You see food being thrown out, perfectly good food, because there's actually an abundance of food, but abundance is contradictory to the way that our system works, the way our market economy works, because it's a capitalist economy and it's based off scarcity. And so it's this is a perfect situation for these companies to price gouge, and they see prices rising in certain areas and it becomes a domino effect where they think, great, I can capitalize on this and I can raise my prices too, even though I'm not really being that affected by the supply chain. Because yeah, there are certain supply chain issues, but it's not across the board.
They're
And
man
yet,
they're man-made. Those crises, they are man-made. They create those crises.
right, there's a component of that, certainly. I mean, the whole issue with the supply chain itself, because we have a globalized supply chain, instead of having these very long supply chains that require going across oceans to bring food in, importing it instead of growing it locally, is a man-made crisis. Because if we were doing all of that production here in the United States, we would not be worried about supply chains failing, and as they've been happening in COVID, because we import so much from overseas. But that is also a result of neoliberal policy since the 1970s or late 1970s, which has opened up markets overseas to bring down the cost of labor to make those products cheaper. And so you're importing products that are cheaper than the products that are being made domestically, and you can't compete with that. So that's all part of this problem that we're facing right now.
And
And go ahead.
right, and the other problem, Margaret, is that we have corporate, growers, farms. We're talking about those corporations, Wall Street, that control a lot of these things. So here we go again with Wall Street and commodities that are that pretty much run our economy based on profit. And but there is plenty of food, and a lot of this stuff has been created a certain way. The system operates a certain way, and they're able to manipulate it at will. We have a water crisis that exists, that is real. We have climate change, Margaret, you know that this will affect the food. This will affect a lot of different things, but a lot of those things can be avoided. Why is it that we don't have a plan in place? Why is it that they are not thinking ahead of the game? Why is it that we always have to react? And when we react, it's by bringing prices up. That tells
Yeah.
me leadership when it comes to this?
Well, I think it's because of the way that the economy is designed as this just-in-time economic system or just-in-time production system, where you're only allowed to you can only produce exactly as what you project to be needed, right? Because you want to maximize your profits. And that's what this is all about. It's all about maximizing profit in this particular economic system that we live in. And so we're not prepared for a crisis. We don't have anything in stock because the modeling didn't anticipate COVID. It didn't anticipate a war, right? So that's part of the problem. And of course, but I mean, that's part of how this capitalist market economy is designed. It's just when you center profit as the core of your economic system, then you're always going to have these failures that happen that hurt people in this way, because it's not a human-centered economy, even though humans are the most important part of the economy. So that's really the problem, is that we need an entirely different economic system, one that actually truly centers people so that they don't get hurt in a crisis like this, and so that the supply chains make sense, and that we can ramp up production as needed so that prices don't go up. Like these are all things that have to change. But yeah, our leadership has failed us, as you said, because they're not thinking about those things. They're thinking about maximizing profits. And our leadership, for the most part, right, is bought off by these corporations that have cornered the markets. We have oligopolies in pretty much every market sector you can think of. And so they make enough money, they accumulate enough wealth to then fund political leaders, and they're the ones who are making decisions. And they're the ones who are creating the incentives in the system. It's climate change is a really great example of this, because it is the greatest market failure of capitalism. And part of it has to do with all of these really bad incentives through tax subsidies. And so the system is designed in this particular case to keep fossil fuels alive. But it's not just as if the system, it doesn't have any humans responsible for that, right? Like the fossil fuel companies basically bought off the politicians or funded the certain politicians so that they would win, so that they could change the system to make it this way, to subsidize fossil fuels. So that's like one really big example, but that happens all across the board. And after Citizens United, I mean, this is the design. The design is for whoever has the most money has the most say. So that's why we see across the board in so many ways a failure of leadership.
Right. And mainly that's the major problem that we have, is the lack of leadership, the lack of planning, the lack of looking out, how those systems do affect the people, particularly the most vulnerable. And when we look at climate change, we are not looking at all the areas. And if they are, they're ignoring them. We wonder why a lot of people are seeking refuge here in the United States, escaping, especially people from Central America. Climate change has deeply affected their farming system and their farming in general. So they are escaping a lot of these things because of hunger and things. Famine is real. Famine is so real at so many levels. And right now we have a major wars happening over in Ukraine. And there are people that have left the country. That's going to create a situation wherever they go. Because again, the systems that exist right now cannot hold, they could barely hold their own. And when you have a massive amount of people coming their way, this is where the problems rise. Right. So again, we are looking, market, at a very unstable situations moving forward. I don't see a plan that we can say, oh my God, we don't have to worry because we have a government, we have a leadership in place, and that is from both parties, a leadership that is looking out for us, that they have created safety nets for us. There is no safety nets. They don't exist. They have never existed. They are safety nets for the corporations, There are safety nets for for the growers. There are safety nets for the wealthy. There are safety nets for the politicians. But the people have no safety nets. They are left to eat the leftovers, literally. We know when the crisis hit, who are going to be the ones that are going to be taken care of? In time of war, who are the ones that are going to have, and who are the ones that are not going to have? Who are the ones escaping, the war zones, seeking refuge, walking for miles with no food or little access to food, where they have to rely on the hearts of organizations that mobilize to feed the multitudes. And again, this is just reactionary.
Right. Yeah, this whole situation with Ukraine and Russia is really affecting the food supply, the food supply chain globally, especially in poorer countries or less wealthy countries. And I was just looking at an article in Scientific American that highlights the particular countries and what they depend on. So I want to just share that with you. Oh, I just closed it. I want to share that with all of you. So in Turkey, it said Turkey people are scrambling to buy cooking oil in anticipation of further price hikes. Thailand faces surging costs for fertilizer and feedstock. Egypt, the top importer of Russian wheat, has banned exports of homegrown grain, which I assume is because they want to increase the supply so that they can keep prices controlled. Indonesia has restricted exports of palm oil, probably for the same reason. And aid groups are worried that rising prices will exacerbate hunger in already vulnerable countries. So that is in Scientific American. The article is called War in Ukraine and Climate Change Could Combine to Create a Food Crisis. And I think, it's important to note that war has these unexpected consequences. And when you have such a globally linked economy and food supply chain, which we do, any component of that supply chain, if it's vulnerable and disturbed, will definitely affect other parts of the world. And I believe leading up to the Arab Spring around 2010, 2011, in that time period, there was also a rise in prices of basic food staples. So we shouldn't be too surprised if we see destabilization in some of these countries. And these are a side effect of this war that's going on in Ukraine. So war is not something that anyone should take lightly or support. We should always look for a diplomatic solution, and we still need a diplomatic, non-aggressive solution here in Ukraine so that it doesn't devolve into another Syria, right? That's a risk. But the other thing is that these supply chains, for example, in the United States, we are depleting our groundwater, our aquifers, especially in the Great Plains with the Okalala aquifer. And if we deplete that aquifer, we are risking the supply chain as well. And we will cause destabilization around the world if the United States, are not able to export those crops that we grow in that region. But it's also very likely, and climate change is putting that at risk as well. Like it's two components. One is overuse. So the agricultural sector is really abusing the aquifers and draining them. And these aquifers, basically, they don't recharge, in 24 hours or over a month or even a year. It takes 100 to thousands of years to recharge, to refill that stored underground water, which means that it's really considered a fossil water, because it's not renewable on human timescales. Like across my own generation, that water will still not be there. So it's not a renewable source in that sense. So we have to be very careful with how we use our groundwater resources. But as we start heading towards more droughts, and the United States, much of the United States right now is in a drought. And in fact, the Southwest in California are in a mega drought, a couple of decade long drought that has not stopped. So as we have severe drought conditions, the agricultural industry relies more heavily on groundwater. And that happened in California in the last big phase of the drought that we are still in. And this was around 2014. And it was so bad that the land subsided. Like it actually shrunk, like it sunk because there was no water there supporting it. And you could see that in photos. So that's really dangerous. It's an abuse of our groundwater resources, and we can't get that back that easily. And so this is the same thing is happening. It's happening in the Midwest, but it's also happening globally. So we should expect to see situations like this increase, where we're worried about our food supply chain collapsing because of climate change. So what we're experiencing right now, Carlos, with Russia not being able to export wheat and other staples that they normally do to these regions, and now we are at risk of these soaring prices because it's not there, and locally they don't have the farming available to make up for it. Like that situation is going to continue to happen over and over again because of climate change if we don't address it. So this is a taste to everybody. If you don't like what you're seeing right now, if you don't like what you're reading about food supplies not being there, then we really need to take action on climate change because it's going to get worse. And
Right.
and so this really is just a preview of what's
Right.
to come.
And you can close your ears, cover your ears, and you could make noise to drown out what we are saying about climate change. But read my lips, climate change is, doesn't matter what you try to ignore, it's real. And the ones that are going to be affected the most will be your children, you know, other generations that are coming right behind us.
Mhm.
So you may have fun right now, you ignore it, and you know, give politicians a pass and don't hold them accountable. But the fact of the matter is that if we don't take action now, we behind. We are behind, years behind already. It's only going to get worse. So the same thing when it comes to food insecurity. We are seeing the first signs of major crisis developing in our communities. And if we don't start changing policies right now, if we don't start creating those safety nets and opportunities for people to have access to healthy food, don't complain when we have to pay the big bills because of lack of inaction. Then the politicians are going to turn around and blame everybody else but themselves. There's two responsibilities here, one for the public and one for the politicians. The public has to be engaged. Michael, I know that we get tired of saying this, but if we are not getting involved, you have no right to complain. You got to get involved, people. We have to look at those issues that you care about the most. Get involved, participate.
Right.
And then we have to make sure that we hold these politicians accountable. They got to do their job.
Yeah. And I think, Carlos, one way that we can solve this problem is if we have more local farms, like more gardens, backyard gardens, rooftop gardens, take over some empty plot of land and create a garden there. Like, we need to be more resilient as communities, as local communities, when it comes to food. We should be providing food for ourselves within our own communities. And we have the power to do that. That's something that's very easy. You don't have to show up to a protest or anything. You just have to figure out how to grow some food in your backyard. And that's really all it takes. And then figure out how to share it with your neighbors.
Right.
That's really what we're going to need. The thing is, if you look over the last 10 years, the direction that we're going in is actually towards localism or decentralization of society. And that means that means that this is actually a solution that we need for climate change. We have to come back to the local scale. Like this, we went globally. That didn't work out too well for a number of reasons, economically and otherwise. But now we're seeing that actually having the local community, having aspects of everything we need at the basic level should be done within within a certain radius, of miles or kilometers, in order to be more resilient and actually to be more redundant, to speak from in an engineering perspective, right? Because, for example, when you send a robot to Mars, you don't just build one component, one brain on the robot. You build in multiple of these, because if one aspect of the system goes down, you can bring up a redundant system, like an identical copy, and that will take over. So redundancies are always built in to make these robotic systems robust, because you're going to ship it out into Mars or wherever, and you can't just send an engineer out there to fix it. You have to have backup systems.
Thank
And
you.
so,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
we need to do that locally. We need backup systems. Just think as like a system engineer. You don't just centralize your agriculture in one region. No, you got to spread it out, because if one region gets hit, you know that you can just rely on it coming from someplace else, or
Right.
you've got it locally, right? So you're okay. And if that region goes down for whatever reason, then you can export what they need to them. So we
Right.
have to think like systems engineers here. Of course, like, this is naturally human. This is how humans thought before. Like, we naturally were more local. We naturally did things, in smaller communities. We didn't have this like massive global 8 billion person community that is totally indifferent to each other. That's not how our societies developed. I mean, there's ways to deal with society at that scale, but we have to build ourselves from the bottom up so that those redundancies are there. And right now we don't have those redundancies. And that's why we're falling into this trap. And that's why when we have a major shock to the system, it's really bad, because it's too centralized in certain ways.
Exactly. We're depending on a billionaire,
Yeah.
like one guy that controls everything. It shouldn't have to be like that. I see. This is why I love you so much, Margaret, because you are saying exactly what needs to happen. What do we have options? Why are we depending on the hand of the government to give us? Time and time again, they have shown that they are not going to come through for us. We got to have to take care of ourselves. This is why during the pandemic, some of the most effective food distributions came from the grassroots, mutual aids.
Yes.
They came together, they put the resources together, they mobilized, and they spread the goods amongst the people that need it.
Right.
That's what they did.
Yeah.
That's what they did. Right? That's what we are good at. So yes, we have to pay attention and look at the system that we are involved in. And when we start seeing failure, this is when we activate ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We have to have urban farming. We have to be able to, again, feed our families. Don't wait on the hand of the government, because they may not come through. And certainly, don't wait on save-ons or bonds or whatever that your grocery store is, because they're only going to be charging you more each and every time, and use any crisis as an excuse to jack up the prices.
Right. Yeah, we need like more co-ops. We need more friendly societies. We need to go back and think about how people used to do things before, right? Like my favorite example of this is It's a Wonderful Life. And the central component of that is the Bailey Building and Loan. And the Bailey Building and Loan was really built on this concept that was brought over from England, these friendly societies, where people would pool their money together. They would like buy shares within this building and loan, and they would take turns funding each other's house that they would build with their collective money. Right? This is called mutual aid. We can do mutual aid. In fact, there's a wonderful anarchist named Peter Kropotkin who was also an evolutionary biologist. And Peter Kropotkin, like he considered himself a Darwinian, but he thought that Darwin's ideas were distorted or taken out of context or misunderstood. That they thought that what Darwin saw was that the natural world was all about competition. But when Peter Kropotkin looked at it, he said, I spent a lot of time, he was like out in Siberia or something, out in the middle of nowhere in Russia. And he studied like all sorts of animal systems from the smallest scale, like ants, all like to bears or something. And he didn't see competition. He didn't see hierarchy. What he saw was mutualism. He saw mutual aid amongst these animals. And we are also animals. And mutual aid actually, as it turns out, is very good for us and makes people happy, because I think actually it was just such great timing. I was reading this article. An article came out that said Finland is like the happiest place to live. Like the people in Finland are the happiest people in the world. And one of the reasons that they said was literally describing mutual aid. Like people cooperated with each other. There was sharing, right? They had a community, and community is mutual aid. Community is all about sharing. It's not about competition amongst people. I think, there's a time and a place for competition in which competition is healthy, but competition should never happen where it's destroying people's lives or putting people, forcing people to compete in a labor market where it drives down the cost of labor and then makes it so that you can't even afford your basic necessities. So we're actually driven to be mutualists. Like we're driven to be people who take care of each other. That's evolutionarily necessary to promote your species from Peter Kropotkin's point of view. And I agree. I think like I feel great when I'm helping somebody. Like,
Right.
my dad's been sick, Carlos, and I've been making him bacon and eggs for breakfast. And I've been thinking like, it makes me so happy to make my dad bacon and eggs. Like, why? I don't want to make bacon and eggs I don't do that for myself, but like the thought of doing it for my dad, like I felt really good. I'm giving something back to him. I'm sharing, and it costs me nothing, but it makes me feel good. So I know that like there is definitely an evolutionary component to sharing and caring in society. And I think our existing system has completely distorted that and taken that away from us, especially in the United States. And we are so unhappy and we have so little, but we've got tons of products, right? We can play video games, we can do drugs, but we're not happy because
And
we're like forced to fight
and
each other to the death.
actually, this is why I'm so excited right now with the programs that I'm working with AIDS Healthcare Foundation, where they have established, you know, tremendous programs that are similar to mutual aid, if not mutual aid in itself,
Yeah.
because we have our food pantries, bring healthy food, bring products, bring produce directly from the farm. And we have contracts with local farms, and not only local farms, but these are family owned farms. So it's everything, you know, to lift each other up.
Mm-hmm.
But we bring products that are freshly cut to the communities that are in need, and they are so successful. I just see the eyes of the people when they see the vegetables.
Oh yeah.
You could actually smell them. I walk down in the market, a lot of these supermarkets, I
Mm-hmm.
don't smell nothing.
No.
I don't smell nothing. You can actually smell the vegetables,
Mm-hmm.
the mint, you know, all these vegetables smell so good. And we are able to share that with our neighbors that are in need. No questions asked. Pick what you need. That's what we tell them. So instead of giving people a bag of food, we actually allow them to select the items that they like. And then everybody gets some milk, everybody gets some eggs, everybody gets, you know, usually what everybody usually use, you know. But when it comes to the vegetables, the produce, the fruits, allow people to pick what they like to cook for their families. And that program is so successful. We have zero waste, zero. There's no waste, zero, literally zero waste.
That's awesome.
I'm so excited because it's like bringing a farmer's market to a
Mm-hmm.
community that have zero access to farmers market because either lack of money
Mm-hmm.
or because farmers market don't want to go there because they know that people don't have the money to
Exactly.
buy.
Exactly. Exactly.
Then we have another program that we just recently opened 3 weeks ago, which is the marketplace. This is a grocery store where people could buy affordable groceries. So what AIDS Healthcare Foundation does is through our program, which is Food for Health, we buy this produce directly from the farm and we bring it to the store. And we are using our purchasing power to buy these groceries at a discount and pretty much sell it at the same price that we bought it for. So there is no profit being made, but it's just you just passing the savings into the people. And when they look at the prices, they're like, oh my God, these are so cheap and so fresh. Yes, because we're doing it the right way. Now, I gotta say, excuse me, I do gotta say this, that I understand, grocery stores being there to make some profit, but not to the amounts that they are charging the people. It's insane. Yes, you gotta pay your employees. That's a cost. You know, Transportation, I doubt that very much. You need to scratch that off the list because you could get the food, delivered to you for free as part of the deal that you make with the wherever you buy the groceries from. So outside of that, there should be a small margin of profit, but not to the amount that you're making billions of dollars. That's greed.
Right.
So that's the other program that we have is the marketplace where people are able to go in there and buy affordable, healthy, fresh, organic products. I just love it. Next Saturday, we're launching our first mobile um, food pantry where we are targeting communities that are in need. And we're setting up like a farmer's market style so people could come and get their groceries. I'm beyond myself. I'm so excited. I cannot wait because we're gonna hit South Central this time around, this next Saturday, and we're already looking at other potential locations. But Food for Health in itself is looking to expand throughout United States with all these models that we are creating. And I gotta say, the amount of support that I'm getting from the foundation, from the leadership at AIDS Healthcare Foundation is incredible. It's incredible. I mean, they are giving no room for failure. It's like we got to get this done. The time is now. We got to help the people. This is their model. It's like we here to help the people. You're getting paid to help the people. Let's do it.
That's great, Carlos.
Free, why not? We can do it now. If we get paid a little money, it's like let's do it. Let's help the people.
That's fantastic. I think that's such a positive note to end on too. Let's help the people.
Yes, let's help the people. People volunteer, come around, be part of this. Everything is connected. We are planning to have our next month. We're going to be announcing, but we plan to have a mother and daughters volunteer day or month rather, where we're going to be encouraging mothers to bring their daughters to volunteer. Then we're going to have a fathers and sons volunteer days. You know, we want to be able to set the example with our kids, show them how we volunteer, and bring them so they can see this, what volunteering is all about.
Yeah.
Let's run, I like to see a mom running, our food pantry, show them how to do it, let them do it. And you just stand back and assist them. But I think that all of us have it within us to be able to lead, to help, to organize, and to mobilize, and to do good things and great things. So look out for Food for Health, because we're on the move. And I tell you, the staff, the volunteers that we have, I just adore them. I adore them because they are the most dedicated. I could not do nothing on my own. I just cannot do it. From the staff at AIDS Healthcare Foundation all the way down to the volunteers, everybody that shows up, is they are making it happen. I'm just there. I'm just watching and helping her here and there, but they make it happen. Thank you, everybody. I want to dedicate this program to you. Years.
Yes, thank you to all the volunteers everywhere. Can't do any of this without volunteers. Absolutely. Well, so fantastic, Carlos. I'm so excited for everything that you're doing. Helping people get access to healthy food is so important because, like, as you touched on at the beginning of the show, eating unhealthy food like fast food, which is extremely cheap, it causes all sorts of health problems down the line, including diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And oftentimes having a very healthy diet can reverse the effects of type 2 diabetes. So really a lot of our illnesses are because we don't eat healthy. We don't
Right.
eat well. We don't eat a well-balanced diet. We don't eat a whole foods diet. And that's because those healthy foods are out of reach for a lot of working people. So, Carlos, any last thoughts before we sign off?
Yes, you could have all the medication that the doctor can give you. If you are not eating healthy, you pretty much, are defeating the whole intentions of the medical field, and the medical uh, programs that they put you under. You gotta eat healthy, but I understand science healthy is not reachable. We're changing that. Get involved, participate. We love to have you. We love you to come on board and help us, elevate these programs, because at the end of the day, it's all about people. These programs exist so that we can help people, and we're doing that. Thank you for your support from the bottom of my heart. I tell you, I cannot do it without your support. And all I'm asking is for you to send a little prayer, light, good wishes, whatever you say, but also lend us a hand whenever we have a call for action to come and help us. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you to all of our viewers for joining us today. You've been watching Stand Up Fight Back, where we discuss strategy and analysis for the progressive movement. As always, I'm your co-host, Margot Pius, and this is your other co-host, Carlos Marroquin. We're here every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, simulcast on Facebook and YouTube. So please hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button, share us with all your friends, tell your next door neighbor, tell your kid's teacher at the elementary school. Just let them know that we're here and we're talking about all the important issues that matter to you and the progressive movement. Okay, we'll see you next Sunday. Take care, everyone. Have an absolutely wonderful week and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.